Hey people. Um, I want to speak a bit about an online news channel called the Young Turks. People who use YouTube on a regular basis and have any sort of political interest, current affairs interest, probably have some familiarity with this channel because it's the largest in terms of numbers of subscribers, views, and so on. The largest online news network, so to speak. By which I mean exclusively online. Um, it's fronted by Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian, um, and basically they deal with all sorts of, let's say, political issues, particularly within America, occasionally outside America, but they tend to focus on US domestic politics and the Democratic-Republican debate. Um, they can be described probably as liberal, centre-left. They're pretty leftist outlook, that's for sure. Um, I've watched a lot of their videos and I agree with quite a lot of what they say. My politics aligns, broadly speaking, with some of their politics, although I don't call myself a liberal per se. I see myself more as a centrist. But I just want to share my thoughts really on this network. What's prompted me to do this is I've just seen a sort of video where they're in an altercation, or not directly, but they talk about a rant that Alex Jones has had against him. Alex Jones is a very high profile conspiracy theorist who has his own channel, and basically it's an argument about who has the most subscribers. Basically, I think Alex Jones is a nutter. I have no time for him. And he really, everything's a conspiracy theory. It's the world's out to get him. It's all one massive conspiracy theory, and they do call him out for that. And sorry, I didn't get much sleep last night. Anyway, what I'm saying is I endorse a lot of what they're saying, but some of the Young Turks style I don't really like, and I don't think it does them any favours. They do tend to have this real smugness in terms of putting out their views. They're very, very sarcastic, very, very smug in the way that they argue their points. Occasionally they make rational points in a rational way, but more often than not they make rational points in a smug way. And the problem with that is it just makes you look like it's a bit childish, but it's also, I don't think it's a way to win arguments. I can understand why they would do it sometimes, because they're certainly the subject of attacks, so maybe it's just their defensive mechanism, but I think it's a mistake, because trying to disprove someone's point by sort of focusing on how stupid they are, even if that is the case, I don't think it's a way to win points. Now what they'll do is they'll crack jokes and they'll come up with sort of sarcastic responses. Then after a few minutes they'll have a serious conversation, and they do make a lot of good points. I don't endorse everything they say. Sometimes I think it's just hard left rubbish, or at least there's positions that as a centrist I don't agree with. But I've also just read that Anna Kasparian works for RT America and has contributed to RT. Now that, for me, raises question marks about her journalistic integrity, because anyone who's done a bit of research on RT would know it's anything but fair and balanced. It's a subsidiary, it's an organ of the Russian government. It is basically the new Pravda. And, you know, she accuses Alex Jones of pumping out conspiracy theories, but RT does that all the time. And it supposedly mainstream, or at least a major news network, but it constantly endorses conspiracy theories. So I think that's a bit hypocritical of her. And I'm no Alex Jones fan, but for her to call him out for being a conspiracy nut and then she works for RT, that's that's inconsistent and frankly hypocritical. Saint Uyghur, again, his sarcastic style, I think, is, I can understand why he does it, but and they can be witty sometimes. I just don't think it's a way to win points. I think it's childish. And the thing is, the people they attack, sometimes they are hard right extremists. Other times they're just people who happen to have right wing views. And I think there's a real smugness to the way they go about it. So for me, that's off-putting. And it's a shame, because I actually do agree with a lot of the things they say. But I just think they're not really doing themselves any favours with this sort of smug attitude. I'd take them a lot more serious, or I'd endorse them more if they presented their style in a more, I guess I could say, respectful manner. I mean, I acknowledge some of the people they're calling out are anything but respectful, so it would be maybe naive to expect them to be so respectful when their adversaries are absolutely not. But unfortunately, this is what American politics has become, and I do say American politics because it's very deeply entrenched in America, where it's constantly about, there's very, very little middle ground. It's always about vilifying the other side, making out the other side to be stupid, etc. If I was an American centrist, I would feel very disillusioned, because on one hand you have Tea Party nuts and just really hardcore conservatives. On the other hand, you have neoliberals who frankly do live in an ivory tower sometimes. So as a centrist, I would feel quite lost in America. I would wonder where to look, really. Obama's broadly centrist, but I'd say he's more to the left, probably. There's very few genuinely centrist candidates out there, and I think that's unfortunate. I mean candidates in terms of leading up to 2016. Broadly speaking, I think Obama's a good president. But this isn't about Obama, this is about the Young Turks. So let me know what you think of them if you subscribe to their channel. I do watch the videos occasionally, so I obviously I'm not put off by them so much that I wouldn't watch the videos, but there's just real smugness to how they go about their arguments sometimes, especially when they address issues like whereby any reasonable person can see that there's valid points on both sides, and they go about it in a very sort of mocking manner on issues like the pro-life, pro-choice debate. They just vilify. They're pro, from what I understand, they're pro-choice, but they just vilify the other side without sort of taking on board some valid points, and that's the sort of style I really don't like. Okay, I'll leave it there. That's my thoughts on the Young Turks.